Okay, this is take two. The phone rang when I was doing the first one. If you notice, the videos are getting shorter. That's because there's not as much problematic stuff that I have to address. Plus, the stories are more, there's not as many stories packed into the readings. They seem to be more lengthy. So today is January 19th, day before the inauguration. This is day 19, number 19 of the Bible reading. The Bible reading is Exodus 4 through 6. Again, I read it KJV and the New American Version, hard copy. I also did the ESV today because I did it while I was waiting for the car to get looked at in the dealership. That's where I had to go this morning. And I couldn't find a New American Version online. I don't like this new website. That like the Truth in Genesis was very good because they had the they had on the screen, I don't know how you say it, but it would be like the words in print, and as you know, you could follow along. They had a cursor following along as the person read the scripture. I couldn't find anything for like that for Exodus. Because truth in Genesis is apparently just literally Genesis they're talking about. So this other one, that's link that I'm going to send you, it doesn't have the words. Now the ESV one did, but they didn't have, the print was real small, and they didn't have the cursor following along. So it was better, but not as good as the Truth in Genesis YouTube channel. Now, okay, so Exodus 4, God does like some little magic show for Moses. Moses tells God, how will I convince people, the Israelites in Egypt, that I've come from you to save them? And God says, well, look at that staff in your hand, and then turns it into a snake, and then turns it back to a staff. The staff meaning, I'm thinking it was probably just a stick, like a shepherd has or no person has to help him walk. Then he turns Moses' hand into leprous, and then turns it back into the way it was. Now here's the problematic thing. Moses still says, I don't want to go, I don't want to do this. God gets mad. And then when he says this, he says, isn't your brother nearby or there or whatever? And he says, yeah. And he says, I'll use your brother to you, and you could speak, I'll speak to you when you speak to your brother, so your brother can speak to the Egyptians. And why cut out the middleman? I mean, why not cut out the middleman? Just talk to Aaron, his brother. Instead of saying, well, I'll tell you, Moses, what to tell Aaron. You know, because we know how the telephone game works. You tell one person something, and then they whisper it to another person, whisper it to another person, whisper it to another person. And then the person at the end of the chain, you ask them what was said, and it's quite different. Typically, it's quite different than what was originally whispered into the first person's ear. Anyways, I don't know. Then okay, so God tells Moses what to say. You know, he says, you know, tell Pharaoh to let my people go. But and he tells this to Moses. He says, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to harden Pharaoh's heart. So meaning he's going to make it to where Pharaoh has no sympathy or empathy. And so why are you playing this game, God? You know, why are you intentionally hardening Pharaoh's heart. And it says, God says, I will harden Pharaoh's heart. So, I mean, like, you really want these boys to go over there and tell the people to leave and put his life at risk doing all, or the two boys, to put their life at risk for this? And then they know that you are going to harden his heart? You're trying to convince them. This is how you convince people to do something? Say, well, do this, but I'm going to make it not work. I know you don't want to do it to begin with, so it's just ridiculous. And anyways, so I don't know if I even actually got to that part yet. Oh, I did. I don't think I wrote it down. So in chapter, I think it was chapter 4. Let me look here. Oh, okay. So on the journey to Egypt, it says, at a place where they spent the night, the Lord came upon Moses and would have killed him. And I was thinking, what is that about? But then you read on. But Zipporah, his wife, who he rapes, took a piece of flint and cut off her son's foreskin. And now it says here in the New American, it says touching his person. And the King James, it says she threw his foreskin at his feet, something to that effect. At Moses' feet. And she says, you are a spouse of blood to me. Then God let Moses go, and at the time she said, a spouse of blood in regard to the circumcision. What does that even mean, a spouse of blood? The Lord shows up to Aaron, says, go meet Moses. And let's see, so he did go to Pharaoh. And says, let my people go. Pharaoh, of course, God hardens Pharaoh's heart. And get this. So God hardens Pharaoh's heart to the point where Pharaoh tells the Egyptian slaves, the Israelites, that he's not going to bring, he's not going to allow straw to be brought to them to make the bricks. They'll have to go and gather the straw themselves every day, but their quota is still the same. Thanks, God. So they have to do the same quota, but they have more work to do to fill that quota. And so why God? So of course then they really don't want to, of course what do you think's going to happen? They're probably not going to want to listen to Moses or Aaron again, because they're like, we didn't believe you to begin with, but now you go and make more trouble for us, and we're already slaves. Now we got to do all this work, and we're getting beat because we can't finish the work that needs to be done because it's just too much now. And so even the foreman comes to Pharaoh and says, listen, this is just too much. And Pharaoh says, I don't care. Deal with it. Sounds like a white man in the United States. And therefore, when they left Pharaoh and came upon Moses, who were waiting to meet them, they said to them, the Lord took look upon you and judge. You have brought us into bad odor. Sure enough, you have brought us into bad odor with Pharaoh and his servants, and have put a sword in their hands to slay us. So yeah, now they're really ticked at Moses and Aaron. And then Moses goes to God and says, listen, why are you doing this? Now look at what you've done. And he said, let's see. I'll take this with you and you're going to do another on your Lord. Basically, it's making another promise that he'll save them. When? He's making it, he's already proven that he's not. He's making it harder for him. Okay, so this is the one when it goes through, it seems that periodically they put in here like the lineage of the people. Now here's chapter 6, verse 20 in the lineage. I'm starting to get sick of these lineages, so I'm not really paying attention as much as I am before to see who marries who, because this is all just inbreeding, if you've noticed. Staying with your tribe or with your clan, or not marrying outside your people is really just saying they're inbreeding. Because it seems like each son of somebody would be a separate tribe or a separate clan. And so they'd have their own, like you have the Jebusites from Jebu. And so you could only marry the Jebusites, which means you're inbreeding. They're inbreeding. Oh my gosh, the mental and physical defects these people probably had. Especially at a time when they didn't have the health and nutrition. They didn't have the medical. They didn't even know anything about medicine. Just like curses and herbs and spices that didn't work. So just imagine, this. I mean, these men whoring around, having sex with a bunch of women, raping them. My gosh, the STIs back then were probably terrible. And don't listen to anybody who says that STIs didn't exist. They probably most certainly did. I don't know why they wouldn't. Anyways, so in chapter 6, verse 20, Amram, let's see, 6 verse 20, Amram married, and I didn't really pay attention to Amram. Amram was the son of Kohath, whoever that was. Amram married his aunt. In other words, he raped his aunt. And that's how Moses and Aaron came about. And Miriam, I don't know why they put Miriam in here, because I think Miriam's a woman. And they don't put women in here. But the only time they put women in the Bible, give them names, is if they're going to become significant later on. You can tell that this was all written, it was written down, like officially written down as the Bible. You can tell that a lot of stuff was added later, because in a lineage they would not have, in an original lineage they would not have put women's names, because women were chattel. They were property to be raped and bear children, male children. And I assure you there was probably a lot of female babies being killed at the time because they were undesirable. They cost instead of brought profit. So anyways, yeah, Amram married his aunt. His father's sister. So there we go. And at the very end, Moses is still bickering with God about doing all this stuff. I don't know why Moses, in reality, if this was a real story, Moses would have just given up. He would have said, this is just too much nonsense. I'm done with you. You're intentionally setting me up for failure. You're making it so I fail. And you're making matters worse. And now everybody hates me. And then you get mad at me for not wanting to do what you say, when everything you say just gets me in more trouble. It makes my life more difficult. It makes everybody else's life more difficult. So anyways, as I was saying, that's the end. Close curtain. Today is January 19th. Tomorrow's the inauguration. The Capitol is being secured against rioters. They have a lot of National Guard, police, whatever. The thing that they're doing, and I'll get this for hypocrisy, the thing that they're doing is they're vetting every National Guard person, every police officer person, everybody that's going to be working security, they're vetting them now to make sure that they're not racist or white supremacists or QAnon conspiracy theorists or radical Trump supporters, because okay, why did they not do that before they hired them into the police? I know personally one person who, fat white dude, just total hypocrite in his thinking. Like, he lived with his mother till he was like 30. And then he talks about, he's a complete racist. He talks about people of color being welfare recipients, even though statistically the white people rate at a much higher percentage per population and per overall recipients, they're higher percentage of welfare recipients. And it depends on what you consider welfare. You know, basically everything we get from the government is welfare. I mean, we all pay into taxes for everything from your police department to your road crews to your libraries to your public parks to food stamps and cash assistance, you know, your WIC. We all pay into that, and WIC is just the same as public parks. You pay into that system, so if you need that system, then that system's there to help you through. Now the system's messed up and it doesn't help, and it's really, and the payments are so low that nobody could live off of that, you know. So just saying, you know, people are living off of welfare, there's no way you can, because there's not enough. If you got every single thing that you possibly could, if you were that desperate that you met the requirements to get on them programs, the assistance is not near what it would take to be able to pay your bills, get your food, you know, use the bus, use any type of transportation you can to get to and from, you know, your job, or, well, even if you have a job now, I mean, even a part-time job, a minimum wage part-time job, the minimum wage is so high now, even at a part-time job, you can't qualify for cash assistance. You can't qualify for food stamps because you make too much money. Now, you don't make enough money to pay your bills or buy food or pay for bus tokens if you are lucky enough to live in an area where there's a bus that can get you to and from work. Most people don't live in an area where that, you know, you could have a bus, and at least, and definitely not a reliable bus. So anyways, this hypocrite who lived with his mother till his parents were divorced. He lived with his mother growing up, and he lived with her until he was 30. He might have been over 30 by the time he moved out. And I'm thinking, you're a welfare recipient. If anything, you're living with your mommy. And then he has some kids, and I don't think he can pay child support now, and I don't know. So let's see, you know. But anyways, and they hired him as, I don't know if this is true or not, because he was a big storyteller, a big tale teller. Made up stuff, like made up jobs that he had, which he didn't have. He used to say he was Irish. He had never been to Ireland, and he was only partially Irish. I don't know how far back it went, but just because his last name was O something, he said that he was Irish, and then he would claim every job he worked, I've been to Ireland, and this and that. He never been to Ireland. Anyways, so yeah, so why are they not vetting these people who, you know, before you arm them with weaponry, make sure they're not racist, you know, because you're not just arming them with weaponry, but you're putting them in a position of power. And that's why we have the police beating up and killing people of color, and includes women too. When you think they're always rooting for the male. There's a lot of female people of color who have been killed or severely beaten or raped. Well, all women are subject to rape under the police. That's just a plague in the police department. And in the armed services, especially if you put them in a foreign country. They'll just rape them women right and left. That's a common problem. And they'll rape their female co-workers too. That's a very common problem. But no matter what color. But anyways, you get these people in there, and that's why they're not vetting them for racism. They're not looking into them deep enough. Nobody called me about this. Somebody that I would have told him he's a racist. You shouldn't hire him. Nobody ever called me to, for his background check. Maybe he didn't put my name down because he knew that I would say that. He's not fit. Not only is he not mentally fit, he's not physically fit. All you have to do is look at him and see he's fat. He's huge. He's a tub. I don't even know why they even thought of hiring him. But he worked there, but not for a long time. And I don't know if he quit or if they fired him. I don't know. But anyways, my sister, the same thing. My sister's, she's sociopathic. That's not saying, she would be diagnosed as sociopathic. If people knew her, if she went to a shrinkologist to get a diagnosis and they knew her history. Like, you can talk to a sociopath, but they can fool the shrinkologist by not telling them the truth. But if you get all her, if the shrinkologist heard all the friends and family's stories, they would say, yeah, you're a sociopath. I don't know if she ever got diagnosed, but I know that she is. And she's a dangerous sociopath. Most sociopaths aren't dangerous. She is. And if she came into a position of power, she would be out of control. She was a 911 operator for a while, and they ended up firing her because she was just, woo. Her sociopathy showed. And, but my sister went for police officer, I can't remember where, and I didn't know she was going to because her and I are estranged. I didn't want to deal with that. There we go again. She...
Hello, please leave a message after the tone.
Whoever was set to review her record to see if she qualified, do the background check, they called me and asked me, do you think your sister would make a good police officer? And I says, I don't know. I haven't talked to her in years. I don't want to say either way. I don't know. And so the police officer brought up an instance where my sister, he said, when was the last time you saw your sister? And the last time I saw my sister at that time had been years prior, when she violently attacked me. And the police officer said, do you think this has something to do with a racial issue? And I says, I never thought of that. I thought she was just, a nut job, and that's why she went after me. And I didn't think she really had a reason other than control. But you might be right, but I don't want to say that is the reason. She never said what the reason was. But she did, and then I thought about it, I said, well, she did use the N-word. And so I said, so you might be right. And he says, well, we weren't thinking of hiring her. I just got to follow all the way through because that's the rules. I can't just stop halfway through and say this person's unfit. He says, but her mother said, your mother said the same thing, that she doesn't see her as being fit because she's not, she's a bigot. And my mother's a bigot too, so. My mother wouldn't make a good police officer, but at least she was honest with my sister being a bigot. And he says, you know, we were thinking she was trying to hide you because she claimed she didn't have your phone number, none of your relatives had your phone number, but when we called your father and asked him for an interview, the only interview we needed was yours. That's the only one was missing, and so I asked him, do you have her phone number? And he says, oh yeah, it's right here, right next to the phone. So he has you on a list. So for her to say that she asked your relatives if they had the number and none of them did, we knew that was a lie. So that right there really cued us into, she didn't want us to talk to you. And I told him, I says, I don't want to cost her a job. You know, maybe she's changed. I don't know what her reason for going off on me was. I can't say for certain, but all I can say is what I know. And she's not mentally stable, in my opinion, unless she's changed. So, because we were all, and even my father said he didn't think she'd make a good police officer. He didn't think she was qualified. So, if we hadn't been truthful, and a lot of relatives cover, and friends cover for their friends, even though they know deep down that them friends, you know, them people they're covering for would not be good police officers. Some of them might be fearful that they're, you know, that somehow their friend would find out that they were the one that said something bad about them. It might be that they don't think they're that bad, or they might think that they owe them the lie. And I can see for something less than this, but this is putting the public at risk. You know, you're putting life, especially people of color and women of color, you're putting their lives at risk. What? For your loyalty? Your loyalty should first be to humans in general when you're talking about something like this, whereas you're going to put somebody you know is unqualified in a position of power over the human race. That your loyalty first goes to that human race. So, anyways, hopefully, the white supremacists, two-bit honkies, will not do anything silly. There's been a couple instances where, you know, now they have checkpoints in Washington, D.C. because they don't want any, you know, more violence. And there's been a few instances so far where there's a person or two at each individual occurrence, just a person or two, not a group, has tried to sneak in somehow, you know, claim who they are, who they're not. Or one person I heard had bombs, a stockpile of bombs or weaponry in his vehicle, trying to get through the patch, and then come to find out that the person was one of these trashy honkies that wanted to, you know, do some violence. So he didn't get there. I don't know. They must have checked his van. I don't know how they had the right to do that, but I don't know. Maybe they're allowing them the right to do that. But yeah, his whole vehicle was packed with that, and so they must have searched his van and found it at the checkpoint. And good thing they did, because goodness knows what would have happened. Who knows if he had a crowd of people that was, maybe the people that went in before him was a crowd of people that were waiting for him to bring the ammunition. And, you know, because he didn't get through, they didn't have their ammunition. They all had to go home. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just guessing at that. I mean, why would one person can only shoot one gun at one time? And if maybe you don't want to be true to aim, you could hold a gun in each hand, or a rifle or whatever in each hand, but your aim would be off. I can't imagine how you could have good aim on two weapons, separate hands, you know, and actually be able to do what you want to do. So he must have had, I'm thinking he had people that already made it through the checkpoint that were waiting for him. Or maybe people lived in Washington, D.C., that, you know, were coming from their homes in Washington, D.C. and coming to We're just there waiting for them. So that spoiled whatever